This is why you should always watch videos to the end. In 2003, a woman came home to her apartment to see that her door was unlocked. She went inside, nothing was missing, so she assumed she must have left it open. When it happened a few more times, but still nothing was missing in her apartment, she went out and got a camera, set it up in her apartment aimed at the front door. The next day, her door was unlocked, so she reviewed the footage. She watches in horror as late in the night, her front door opens and in walks this tall, creepy man who looks around and then walks towards her bedroom off camera. She immediately sprints out of her apartment and calls the police, who show up and tell her to go back in her apartment and just try to stay calm, and that they would put an officer right outside her door so she's safe. As she's sitting on the bed, totally traumatized, she realizes something. She only saw him enter her apartment on that video. She doesn't know if he actually left. As she's sitting there, she feels breathing on her ankles. She runs out, the cop comes in, and he finds the tall, creepy man under the bed holding a knife and a camera.
Creepy facts that you shouldn't read. Your mind gets sense when someone is staring at you even when you're asleep, which explains why you randomly wake up during the night. Spirits are more active at night and mostly exist in air-conditioned rooms. They look and stare at you at night. They read your mind and try to speak and show your future dreams. Follow if you're scared.
Here's some crazy history that you definitely have not heard before. Apparently Buzz Aldrin was difficult to work with, so Neil Armstrong almost replaced him for the Apollo 11 mission, but he ended up going. JFK was rejected from military service due to health issues during World War II, but because of his connections that his father had, he was able to still join the US Navy. Eisenhower had an alternate speech ready if D-Day failed, where he takes full responsibility for the failure and where he calls the decision to attack his decision, stating if any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone. A man survived a 324-foot fall from that pyramid-shaped building in San Francisco, and apparently a nearby guard heard him screaming, "Whoopee!" Okay. The Navy constructed a 300-foot ice cream barge during World War II, producing 10 gallons every 7 minutes to raise the morale in the Pacific. Creative, I guess. The Colosseum in Rome once had 80 different entrances to get in, with 4 of them being for the VIP high-stature people. And now there's only 3 entrances total in the entire Colosseum. There is a typo on the Lincoln Memorial. Specifically, the word future was initially engraved as future due to an error by the artist who made it. Apparently he accidentally grabbed an E stencil instead of an F during the engraving process. And now you know.
Horror movies I have no business being in because I would be dead immediately. Absolutely not. And there's no way I'm surviving. Art the Clown. Have you seen the way he kills people? I mean, y'all, he literally cut a woman in half from starting at her hoo-ha and going all the way down, then wore that skin around. Like, granted, I ain't got no hoo-ha, but like that don't mean, like, he be coming after everybody and like slicing you with a smile on his face. And to 28 days, weeks, and years later, I'm going to say no to that one too. Honestly, don't think I belong in a world where there's not a functioning Chick-fil-A. Like, why do I want to survive? A lot of people say, like, they just are ready for a zombie apocalypse, but I don't really know if I'd really enjoy that. Then what do you mean I got to run from these alphas with their full bush slongs slinging all around as they chase you down, ready to rip your spine out? And then if I do survive, what's the point? I'm not a pilgrim. I don't want to ride over on the Mayflower and rebuild. That seems no fun. And this one too, that's absolute no. How you going to tell me that I got popped my eyeballs out in 60 seconds to live? I ain't about to do that, no. Well, that was fun. Let me know if you want me to do more of these, because these are pretty fun.
The way Andrew Gosden went missing in 2007, it is still one of the most mysterious cases out of the UK. This really young kid at the time, he was described as shy, he was intelligent, and he was living in a suburb called Balby in Doncaster. For no known reason, on one specific day, he woke up, did a fake out of going to school, but then decided to walk to a nearby rail station. He'd taken out about $200 of his own money from an ATM, and he bought a one-way ticket from his hometown to London. He was offered a return trip ticket multiple times by the clerk. He specifically wanted a one-way ticket. He also decided to bring his PSP on this trip. He was religious about this thing. He would always play it, but it was strange that he didn't take his charger, which would almost indicate that he had intentions to come back, right? And yet he only bought the one-way ticket. To this day, this still is the last remaining image of Andrew Gosden, as he was never seen after this one-way trip, and no one knows where he was going or why.
They have found missing children in a secret underground bunker in Alabama. Now, they have currently arrested 4 guys, all in their 20s. Kids have been going missing. There has been a massive investigation, and up until now, they have realised the severity of it. Now, all 4 men have been charged with counts of human trafficking, child rape, and kidnap. But it's so much bigger than this. One of the men has actually already been charged with selling these children to his clientele. Now, I suspect that this case is going to be massive. There is going to be so many more people who are attached to this who are going to be arrested. These children aged from 3-year-old all the way to 16-year-old. The house that has been located in the middle of a forest has an underground bunker. And these men have been dragging these children and hiding them here. And it gets even worse because it's also not just children. This is also the involvement of animals. Animals which have been raped and abused in this property. This is horrific. I'm going to be following this one because I suspect a lot more people are going to be getting arrested. I'm going to be dropping every single one of these horrible names.
Content creator Megan Gower is being slammed all over social media because of how she was treating her children on a live stream.
What is this? Absolutely not right now. What the fuck is it? It's the girl. This is bracelets. We don't have the time for that. We can do it tonight.
Can you just open it?
No, because you can have that shit everywhere.
No, I won't. Open it. Give me it.
I'm not opening it. I'm not opening it.
I'll open it.
Go ahead, try.
I can't.
Okay, get out of my room with it.
Riley, not right now, baby.
I'm opening it.
I done told her no. We're going to. Riley, you're drinking.
Don't start, right?
Girl, I will smack this motherfucker upside your
Give
head.
me mine.
We're going to Monster Jam.
Give me it. Give me it. Give me it. Give me it.
Get out.
Give me it. It's mine. Give me it. Give me it.
Get out of my room.
Give me it.
Touch me again.
Mommy, touch me again.
Get out of my damn room.
Where can I go?
Yeah. I'm so glad you're so nice and like your motherfucking sister.
Hey,
Mom is like you
you
cute.
know, been mean to me.
Oh, how's it being mean to you? None of your damn business. That's what.
I'm so sad. This is big and you
My daughter's supposed to.
We're
We're going to Alabama.
big.
Trees caught on camera walking.
This is why you should never live next to crazy people. In 2015, a girl who was totally fed up with her noisy neighbors finally worked up the courage to go over there and tell them to be quiet. She knocks on the door and out walks this insane looking old woman who just starts hissing at her. And she doesn't stop hissing at her until the girl finally just leaves. She considers calling the police, but ultimately just goes back to her room and goes to bed. But she wakes up a couple hours later when she hears that same hissing sound. Her first thought is there's no way this can be my neighbor because she had her door locked. But then she notices there's a big lump right next to her in her bed and she reaches over to check who it is. Her crazy neighbor leaps out of bed and runs into the closet.
This is a true horrifying story, part 25. Warning, this is not a joke. The information that's going to be shared is dangerous and life-threatening. Do not, under any circumstance, commit the actions that will be narrated. This is the world's most dangerous book ever, Shams al-Ma'arif. This book was written by Ahmad al-Buni in the 17th century. But technically, the author of this book is not a human being. I never did and will never read this book. And this is your second warning. Do not read this book. Ahmad al-Buni practiced black magic, and he was in contact with the most powerful jinns and demons before he passed away. The jinns were the authors of this book. The elder generations, like our moms and dads, have heard about this book, and they were warned by it. There are thousands of horrifying stories of people who read this book. Shams al-Ma'arif explains everything about black magic, how to get in touch with the world of jinns, how to marry a jinn, and the sacrifices you have to do for the devil, and much more. Unfortunately, this book can be easily found online. One day, a Saudi Arabian man that read hundreds of books for a living decided to read this book specifically out of interest and love for all books, without fearing the consequences behind it. He reached the chapter that teaches readers how to get married to a female jinn. He laughed about it. He tried the ritual to experiment it. The first night after finishing the whole book and completing the marriage ritual, he felt someone breathing next to his face. And on the second night, he felt a hand touching his feet. And on the third night, he heard her voice. The man was officially locked in a marriage with a demon. 5 years go by. He met a normal, beautiful woman that he fell in love with, and they both decided to get married. A week before the wedding day, the bride, the bride's parents, and the groom's parents all pass and die in 3 different car crashes. These are the consequences behind this book. And it's also known from many stories of people that have died from reading the first few pages. If you don't finish reading the book, you will get killed. All my stories, all of them, are true incidents that happened one time only. But this book is a product that is permanently available online. I beg you, do not go anywhere near Shams al-Ma'arif. This video is to educate you on the dangers behind this book. Do not go anywhere close to the world of jinns.
Bone-chilling facts that you probably don't want to hear. Your bed can have over 10 million dust mites living in it. You know, the same bed you sleep in. Ancient Romans believed that drinking the blood of fallen warriors would give them powers. So at the end of gladiator games at the Colosseum, they would go out and drink the fallen soldiers' blood. Chainsaws were originally invented for childbirth. Ugh. Over time, the blade of a guillotine would get dull, which meant that sometimes they would have to do it twice to finish the job. And while we're on the subject, it's estimated that somebody can maintain their consciousness for about 20 seconds after they've been decapitated.
Horrifying facts that will blow your mind. Part 2. These are onion rings.
What in the get out is going on here? So I saw this on X, y'all, and I had to share this with y'all. So this couple, this interracial couple, went on a date, right? Now this dude posted this on Facebook originally and it went viral. He said, "This is why I don't usually date outside my race." Now, if y'all have never seen the movie Get Out, you better go watch it. So basically he went out with this girl. They went on a date. That was the picture of them. And then she texted him saying, "I definitely enjoyed our night out, but I don't think my parents can find out about us, ... He said, "Same here, and why?" And she said, "They despise black guys. My last black boyfriend, let's just say it didn't go well. They literally set him up to be put in jail for life for something he didn't even do. Google Wellington. I really like you, but I don't want anything to happen to you." Not giving his government name. And then he replied and said, "I like you too. And yeah, that's crazy. I went to school with him. Maybe if you sat down and had a conversation with them, they'll loosen up. Think they would be down for dinner?" And she said, "I'll ask, LOL, because I really like you and I will not lose you." And then he said, "I don't want to lose you either." And then she basically said that her mom and stepdad would be open to meeting that evening. So I guess he meets the parents. He takes a screenshot of the dinner and shows receipts of the meeting. This is so creepy. So he took her phone and saw a message. This is so creepy, y'all. Saying this. He said, it says basically that was her talking to her mom. "Mommy love." He seems well put together, but it's something about him me and Jeff don't approve of. He seems like he would be good around the house for things we need, but not for a relationship. Tried to convince him to start working for us, and once we take a trip to the mountains this summer, Well, know the rest. Well, you know the rest. What? And then she said, Mom, I really like him. Can I at least keep him? He's very sweet. What? And then she said, not at all. Dating a black guy in the South, especially Mississippi, is not recommended. Do as you're instructed, please. You'll find someone better. And then she says, okay, I'll let him know that Jeff is hiring for work around the house. And like, what? He then posted this post on FB saying, so this is why I stopped dating outside my race, would be good and set up. And to this day, she still don't know that I saw those messages in her phone because I left afterwards and never said nothing else about it. Be careful out here, especially in Mississippi. Y'all better be safe. This is crazy. This is literally insane that this is a true story.
Brian Kobberger has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Many were hoping that Kobberger would speak in court today, but he only said that he respectfully declined to speak to the court ahead of his sentencing. The killer remained stone-faced as the victims' families gave their impact statements before the hearing. However, the courthouse erupted in applause after this scathing statement by Kaylee Goncalves' older sister, Olivia.
Let me be very clear. Don't ever try to convince yourself you mattered just because someone finally said your name out loud. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your ass. Thank you.
Finally, before the emotional judge issued down the sentence, he said it was finally time to end Mr. Kobberger's 15 minutes of fame.
Jeffrey Epstein is still hiding plenty of secrets. So let's talk about a big one. So we all know Jeffrey Epstein. Some of us are going to know the former Attorney General Bill Barr under Donald Trump. But did you know that Bill Barr, the former Attorney General of the United States' father, Donald Barr, was the headmaster of a prep school in New York City while Jeffrey Epstein was employed there? Yes, here's Jeffrey when he was a teacher at this school. It was called the Dalton School in New York City. And Donald Barr, Bill Barr's father, was the headmaster at the time. Now, obviously, it's disturbing looking back that this man would have hired this pedophile to work around teenagers, but now we have to talk about something really strange. So, Donald Barr was an author, and in the year 1973, while he was working as the headmaster, published it wasn't just any novel, though. It was called Space Relations, and the plot of the book was as follows, quote, Space Relations is a science fiction novel about a planet ruled by oligarchs who engage in child sex slavery. I'm not making this up. You can buy a copy of this book yourself and read it. I've read passages from it, and this is very disturbing stuff. So Donald actually published that book while he was the headmaster of the school, at the same time that Jeffrey Epstein was there. And then decades later, Bill Barr, Jeffrey Epstein's former employer's son, would lead the prosecution against him when he was arrested, as he was the United States Attorney General at the time. If you still think these are all coincidences, I honestly just don't know what to tell you. Now, interestingly enough, when the Epstein thing really started in 2019, people asked Bill Barr to step away from the case, but he refused. You see, Bill Barr had already had experience covering up the Franklin scandal in Omaha, Nebraska, which we can talk about in a later video because it's a lot of info. But yeah, this is just incredibly shocking stuff that I don't see anybody really talking about to this day. And if you want to hear me rant more about topics like this and do extremely deep dives, check out my channel on YouTube, The Conspiracy Files, or the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Breaking news. Police found a man trapped in the tunnels of rapper Diddy's house, and when they found out who he was, they were in for a shock. According to sources, it all started with an anonymous tip that pointed out suspicious activity at Diddy's mansion, which is located in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Los Angeles, California. While investigating the location, the police found a secret tunnel system that stretched for more than 200 meters. But what caught their attention the most was something hidden in one of the rooms in the tunnel. As they entered the tunnel, the police began to hear noises and screams coming from one of the rooms. Shocked, they decided to investigate who was making those noises, especially in an underground tunnel. When they entered the room, they came across a scene that looked like something out of a horror movie. A living person was chained to a chair. According to the investigators, the victim was visibly shocked and said that he had been there for years and had to catch insects to eat without contact with the outside world. The investigators were shocked, and decided to ask who it was. When he revealed his name, everyone in the room was completely stunned because it was unbelievable. And when he tells you who he is, you will be shocked. Commentary for Part 2.
I think this is one of the most terrifying photos I have ever seen, but the gag order in the Bryan Kobberger case has been lifted. This gag order banned police and prosecutors from speaking about the case ahead of the trial, and the intent was to ensure Kobberger's right to a fair trial so that he couldn't appeal on random grounds after a conviction. But now that Kobberger has pleaded guilty, the gag order has been lifted, and this comes just days before Kobberger's official sentencing, which is scheduled for July 23rd. All documents in the case that have been sealed will remain sealed for now, but the Moscow police said they are preparing to release a large amount of information later on, and Judge Hippler said court documents would be made public in batches upon review by the court. After the judge lifted the gag order, Moscow Police Chief Anthony Dollinger said, "We've been focusing on the victims and bringing justice for the victims. That was our focus. That was our mission. So that mission was accomplished." When asked if police were able to find a clear motive, Dollinger said he could not answer. But this means that soon we will likely know a lot more about what prosecutors had against Kobberger, including potentially knowing a motive. So we will see what will be released in the coming months.
His headless body was found in a fish tank. 65-year-old Brian Egg was born in San Francisco, California, and spent his whole life there. He decided to live close to his family so they could always visit, and communication played a major role in the relationship. In mid-2018, the family's communication got weaker and there was fewer visits. Since Brian had so much free time on his hands, he decided he was going to help serve his community and would pick up trash from the alleyways. One weekend, neighbors noticed Brian doing his voluntary community service and go inside of his house, but that was the last time they ever saw him. About a month later, Brian's brother Devin called his cell phone to catch up, but it went straight to voicemail. Devin was alarmed by this because he knew his brother would always answer the phone. In addition to that, his answering machine didn't really sound like his voice. Devin tried to call Brian's phone again, and on the third time, it was picked up by a man who went by the name of Nate. Nate informed Devin that Brian was taking his dog out for a walk and would call him as soon as he got back, but Devin never got that call. At the end of July of that year, Brian's neighbors started suspecting that he was probably missing. He was familiar with almost everyone in his neighborhood and no one had seen him. They informed police about this, and if he wasn't missing, he may be suffering from an injury inside of his home. When police went to Brian's home, there was no answer, so they left and didn't continue with an investigation. Police just assumed that maybe Brian went out of town and didn't tell anybody, but his neighbors knew that something had to be wrong. Within a short period of time, neighbors noticed two individuals going in and out of Brian's home. The two men appeared to be homeless and were using Brian's home as their own. Neighbors alerted police and they told them that they would look into it, but again, they didn't take this case too seriously. Since Brian had not contacted his family in months, his sister ended up reporting this to the police. On August 4th, police went to Brian's home to investigate, but once again, no one answered the door. Once they left, neighbors noticed what appeared to be deep and thorough cleaning at Brian's home. Soap bubbles were emerging from the front door and there was a strong scent of bleach. Strangers who were living at Brian's home were seen painting like they were covering something up. On August 7th, Brian's sister filed a missing persons report. About a week later, neighbors called police after seeing a crime scene cleanup company outside of Brian's home. Finally, police took this report seriously and ended up searching Brian's home. Police ended up arresting Robert McCaffrey, and he had been living in Brian's home for at least 2 months, and then 2 days later they arrested Lance Silva. The two men were charged with ID theft and financial crimes. They were caught using Brian's credit cards where they purchased a car. A thorough search was done on Brian's home, and about 4 days later, they found a storage room underneath the staircase. Once police went inside of that room, they found a hidden fish tank, and inside that fish tank, they found the torso of a beheaded body. It would be later confirmed that it was Brian's dismembered body. Brian's death would be ruled out as a homicide, and those two men were charged. However, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office later on would drop all of the charges, and to this day, those two men are free. Unfortunately, no one has ever been found guilty of Brian's murder. Eric Mendez is being treated for a serious medical condition, and his lawyer is asking for his release from prison now, a month away from his parole hearing.
This comes after the Mendez brothers were resentenced from life in prison without parole to 50 years in prison. They have parole hearings set in August. Today, it was reported that Eric had been diagnosed with a serious medical condition, and following his diagnosis, his attorney, Mark Garagos, has asked California Governor Gavin Newsom to allow his client to leave prison. He said, "I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I'm not going to violate HIPAA or attorney-client privilege. But if there's anybody that should be furloughed, especially right now, a month before the hearing, it is Eric." While he noted that the diagnosis was hopefully not life-threatening, he reiterated that it was serious, saying he should be medically furloughed so he can work with the parole attorney and be up to speed and be ready. It is the only fair and equitable thing to do. After the attorney made this statement, TMZ confirmed that 54-year-old Eric is being treated for kidney stones, but this has not been confirmed officially by the lawyer. Eric and Lyle both have parole hearings set for August, just a month from now. And at that hearing, it will be decided if they will be released or have to spend more time in prison. But at least Eric may be let out early if he can get this medical furlough. Barry Morphew's indictment has revealed more details about his wife's death and how investigators were finally able to charge him with her murder. Suzanne Morphw disappeared on Mother's Day 2020, and her husband Barry has been a suspect from the start. In 2022, he was arrested and charged with her murder, but the initial charges were eventually dismissed without prejudice, meaning authorities reserved the right to charge him again. After this, authorities continued to search for Suzanne's body, and on September 22, 2023, in an unrelated search, Suzanne's remains were found. The bones were found in and around a, quote, shallow clandestine grave less than an hour south of the Morphw residence. And then on June 20th, 2025, Barry Morphw, after being indicted by a grand jury, was arrested and charged with the murder of Suzanne. He appeared in court last week, and we now know more details from his indictment. The indictment says that the majority of Suzanne's bones were recovered and that a board-certified anthropologist, a botanist, and an entomologist were brought in to analyze the remains, and they concluded that it was unlikely that Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at the location where she was found. So that means that her body was moved at least twice after her death. Also speaking out recently was a man who got to know Barry Morphw after the charges were dropped and Morphw moved to Arizona. He moved to Cave Creek, Arizona, and started going by the name Bruce. Public records indicate that Barry Morphw paid property taxes at the Stardust Trailer Park and was self-employed. In Colorado, he was a landscaper and independent contractor, but he didn't hold any of these professional licenses in Arizona. This man who got to know him, Charlie Lutz, was an employee at a restaurant in Cave Creek, and he said he didn't know Morphew's real name until he was arrested on June 20th. Up until that point, he knew him as Bruce, a man who came in and drank beer. He said that Bruce was always approached by other women at the bar, saying that he would also frequently approach other women and flirted with them. One of these women, Libby Spurl, recognized him immediately. She said, quote, "He walked up to me and said, 'Hi.' He's like, 'Do you want to dance?' And I said, 'You're Barry Morphw.' And he said to her, 'No, I think you have the wrong person.'" A bit later, Libby said an individual approached them and introduced Barry Morphw as Lee from Indiana. And according to his indictment, he went by the alias Lee Moore, and a gas station clerk confirmed he knew Morphw as Lee. He was clearly trying to go unnoticed so that people wouldn't recognize who he actually was. But now he has been arrested and indicted by a grand jury.
He ended his sister's life because his Xbox was lagging. 19-year-old Alexis Brianna Watkins was from Macon, Georgia, and lived in a home with her family. This included her 16-year-old brother Kevin, her mother Latoya, her 13-year-old brother, and her son. Alexis was described as outgoing and having a zest for life. She was in a relationship with her high school sweetheart. The two would end up getting engaged, and she would have her firstborn son. She poured her heart and soul into becoming the best mother that she could be for her son, and with her high school sweetheart, they were a very tight-knit and loving family. On February 2nd of 2018, Alexis's 16-year-old brother Kevin returned home from school and wanted to play his Xbox. He was getting angry because his Xbox was lagging, and he assumed it was because there was too many people on the Wi-Fi, so he went ahead and changed the password so that no one else could use it. Kevin and Alexis's 13-year-old brother realized what he had just did, so he went to go tell his mom. Once her mom found out what Kevin had did, she unplugged the internet router and went to his room and took out his Xbox. This made Kevin even more angrier. He confronted his mother, trying to fight her, but pushed her to the side and said, "I don't want to hit you." Alexis stepped in to save her mom and grabbed Kevin in a bear hug and told him to chill out. At this point, Kevin is in a fit of rage and he has his sister in a prolonged chokehold lasting 15 minutes. The mother and 13-year-old brother tried to separate the two, but he told his mom that he would hurt her if she tried to intervene, so she ran to call 911. As she was waiting for police to arrive, Kevin still had a tight grip on his sister's neck. Once police arrived, Alexis was unconscious, her body was limp, and Kevin still wouldn't let go. Once officers told Kevin to release his grip, he did, but it was already too late. Alexis was rushed to the hospital and they were able to resuscitate her and she was sent to the ICU. She had a condition resulting of lack of oxygen to the brain and the next day she passed away. Authorities immediately arrested Kevin and he was charged with the murder of his sister. Ultimately, the judge found Kevin guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.